everyone. This is your host, Chief Warrant Officer 3 Sewall with the Warrant Officer Recruiting Company. And today we will be exploring the Warrant Officer MOS 311 Alpha, CID Special Agent. Our special guest today is Chief Warrant Officer 5 Fitz, the Command Warrant Officer for the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command. Chief Fitz will be talking to us about what it means and takes to become a CID Special Agent Warrant Officer in today's Army. Chief Fitz, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to hear your input and all the different ways that CID warrant officers contribute to the mission. First of all, can you please tell us a little about yourself and your military career?
Well, Ms. Sewall, first off, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to represent our branch and hopefully drum up a little business for us through the accessions process. So thank you for, again, thank you for the opportunity. So me, I've been around a little while. I joined the Army and attended basic training in July of 1983. As a military policeman, enlisted soldier, served a couple years on active duty, and then transitioned to reserve component for about 5.5 years. And then came back on active duty in January of 1993, again as a military policeman, and pretty much right away was presented the opportunity to start working with CID, which I did, and have been with CID since then, since about April or May of 1993. It's been an interesting career. I tell you, I really enjoyed the Army. The Army's provided a lot for me and my family, opportunities to travel and see things and go places. Obviously, the opportunity to serve our nation, and opportunities for education and training that I probably would never have had had I not joined the Army. So it's been really good. Can't complain. Really have nothing to complain about. I have no regrets other than maybe I should have stayed on active duty instead of having a break for a couple years. But other than that, it's been really good.
Thank you for that. Can you tell us a little about what your job as a CID Command Chief Warrant Officer and how you fit into the proponent and the warrant officer recruiting picture?
So as the Command Chief Warrant Officer, I am the principal advisor to our commanding general for all things warrant officer related, and I serve as one of his senior advisors for all criminal investigative matters as well. So there's a dual role here for me as the Command Chief. I continue to be able to participate in the technical piece of being a warrant officer in my career field as a CID agent. But I also am directly involved in the proponent piece and the recruiting or the warrant officer accession piece as well. Unlike some of the other branches within the military police regiment, the military police branch, our proponent out at Fort Leonard Wood at the Army Military Police School is responsible for things like doctrine and organizational structure and material solutions and things. But the personnel management piece really falls on me as the Command Chief Warrant Officer. So I'm directly involved in talent management, developing a talent management process based on the Army talent alignment process and AIM 2. And I work with HRC on almost a daily basis, our career manager out there on the future of our warrant officer force and individual warrant officers as far as helping them with professional development and career enhancement. So that part of it is a little different than maybe other branches. And then in the recruiting and accessions piece, as you know, we work very closely, you and your counterparts in USAREC, with the requirements, prerequisites, and such when it comes to those that are applying to be a CID warrant officer. So there's a lot of things that I'm kind of responsible for as the command chief, not just a pretty face in the parade to wave at folks as the float goes by. There's a lot of work involved.
Okay, thank you for that background. So we've come up with a list of questions that potential candidates want to know when pursuing a career as a CID warrant officer. To start with, can you give us a brief answer on why did you become a warrant officer? Was there a certain event or individual that helped guide you towards this path or decision?
So I decided to apply to be a warrant officer because I really enjoy the technical aspects of what I do. I enjoy being a CID agent and involved in criminal investigations. Unlike our enlisted agents, they career track a little bit differently. As they progress in grade, they have a tendency to shift into more administrative functions and will serve in leadership roles like a detachment sergeant, operations NCO at a battalion level. Within our battalions, we have first sergeants, so battalion first sergeants, and then on up to the group or brigade level is sergeants major and command sergeants major. That wasn't necessarily the path I wanted to take. Again, I really liked what I was doing. I had quite a few warrant officers within the unit that I was assigned at the time, and in my battalion that would come around and encourage those of us that were enlisted to, consider becoming a warrant officer. And, one of them one day said, "Hey, I think you got what it takes, Fitz. Why don't you give it a shot? We'll support you through the process." So I did. And, I really do not regret that decision at all. I think it was one of the more intelligent decisions that I've made in my life. And it has kept me engaged in the operational side of CID, rather than having maybe shifted away into some administrative things. So I've really enjoyed being a warrant officer.
I think that's a lot of individuals' path when they choose to make this decision on switching as a warrant or staying as enlisted, of the technical side versus the admin side. And those that really love what they're doing and want to stay on the technical side choose to go the warrant officer route because they have no desire to go and be a first sergeant or sergeant major. But if you have someone that comes to you and, is talking about what a warrant officer does and why should you be a warrant officer, or what's the big difference, what would you tell someone that is interested in it but doesn't know if they want to pursue the career as a CID agent or not? So why should someone pursue a career as a CID agent, as a warrant officer versus enlisted?
So let's just start with and maybe you'll get to this later, and I apologize if I'm jumping ahead, but within CID, within the military police branch, we only have one feeder MOS to warrant officer, and that's 31 Delta, which is our enlisted CID agent. So that's, as you are familiar, that is our primary target audience when it comes to recruiting or assessing warrant officers, is from within our pool of enlisted agents. And our initial our minimum requirement is 2 years time as an enlisted CID agent. So a lot of those that are applying already understand the career field. They have attained a certain level of technical expertise. So they kind of have an idea of what they're getting into as a warrant officer. Now, we do on occasion have non-traditional programs where we'll allow non-31 deltas to apply to be a warrant officer, but we do that occasionally to in an attempt to kind of increase our manpower when we're in kind of low manning times, which we've done that in the past, and some of your audience probably will understand those instances when we've done that. But a CID warrant officer really is supervising. So that enlisted agent who has spent several years working cases and gaining that technical expertise that's necessary, now they're stepping into a supervisory role and they're running a team. And depending on location, the team may be 2 or 3 enlisted agents and the 1 warrant, or it may be 10 enlisted agents and the 1 warrant officer. So there's definitely a requirement there for the expertise. So I just want to be clear that our primary focus is on assessing from within. We do take from other services. We've looked at the Marine Corps and the Air Force both for potentially bringing over, but what's difficult is to make that transition into CID as a warrant officer without the technical skill set kind of, developed or starting to develop, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense, sir. So as the CCWO for CID and also working with proponent and HRC and, you wear multiple hats, if an applicant calls and asks, where and what can they do to strengthen the packet, what advice do you have for them if they're not at that point technically qualified or ready to drop an application?
So I think really the main answer or the primary answer I give our soldiers when they ask me this question is, a lot of it I think is an individual decision. Do they feel like they're ready? Do they feel like they've attained a certain level of expertise? Certainly I can evaluate that based on, assignments that they've had, length of time in CID, types of investigations they've worked. But really a lot of it comes down to their comfort level, if you will, with taking that next step. And it is a big step for a lot of us to move from enlisted and go through the warrant officer candidate school and all of that process, and then move into a supervisory role where now you're in charge rather than just working cases every day. So I think education, though, is important. I think we, within CID, for our warrant officers, we have an internally mandated requirement of 120 hours or bachelor's degree to be a CID warrant officer. It's waiverable. We'll look at those that don't have the full 120 hours, but I definitely encourage them to look at additional education, additional training when it comes to specialty training, whether it be at the military police school or even outside agencies that provide like advanced level law enforcement or investigative training that will benefit them. Really anything that they can do to increase their level of experience and their technical skill set. That's really what I'm looking for.
Okay, and you hit on some of the MOS, specific prereqs of, college credit hours or a bachelor's degree, and those for you that are listening. And additionally, on our website, gowarrantnow.com, you can find the MOS prereqs for 311 Alpha on there that will lay out all of them specific to that MOS. And so you hit a little on, training opportunities and how to strengthen, individuals. Are there other training opportunities out there available to enlisted soldiers that help them align with their career progression to become a warrant officer, that if they identify early on or through their career that this is something that they want to do, that you recommend they do to help strengthen them and develop them so they are successful as a warrant?
Yeah, so I think the technical stuff is great, and like I said earlier, that's something that I'm definitely looking for. Are those enlisted soldiers that have been through some of our mid-level and advanced technical training at our military police school or other places, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, the FBI. We send some of our agents to the FBI for forensic training, crime scene processing, evidence collection, evidence management, those kind of things. But I think one of the things really that I like to see, and I encourage our enlisted soldiers, is, pay attention to your leadership skills. Pay attention to where you are career progression wise as an enlisted soldier. Don't neglect that. If you are a staff sergeant, which I think it's staff sergeant, you're eligible to go to SLC. I would encourage them to go. Don't forego the opportunity to go to enlisted PME because you have a desire to someday be a warrant officer. Those leadership skills, soldier management, kind of administrative even skills that are taught in our NCO courses are definitely transferable to being a warrant officer and being in squad level team kind of leadership opportunities. So I always encourage our enlisted soldiers, hey, until you actually submit a warrant packet, you need to continue to pursue what the Army expects you to pursue as an enlisted soldier and as an NCO.
And that kind of feeds into our next question a little on how a soldier individual knows, when they have that good balance of technical skills and capabilities and that leadership managerial experience. Because depending on where you are in your career, you can be very technical and experienced there but not have a lot of managerial leadership. But then as you progress, you kind of become a little more heavy in the leadership managerial. So what is a good time, or how do you know when you have that good balance to make that transition?
Yeah, that's a hard one right there, to be honest with you. I mean, like most other warrant officer fields, the emphasis is, with enlisted soldiers up until a certain period is on, doing your job. So gaining some technical skill set. We actually will recruit enlisted soldiers. Right now it's up to staff sergeant, up to sergeant, but not sergeant promotable. So, because we're kind of heavy in mid-level NCOs right now. So when you're looking at that, there's not many that possess a whole lot of leadership experience or leadership skill. And that's a challenge, right? If you're going to make that transition to now you're going to be a team chief or a team leader, and then continue to progress on the leadership side. And as you said, managerial experiences, that's very difficult for some of our enlisted agents to get any experience in those things. The technical part, not so much a big deal, but the leadership and managerial experiences are a little more difficult, especially when we're assessing primarily in the Sergeant E5 staff sergeant. That's the majority of those that we're bringing in to be warrant officers. So they don't really possess a whole lot of that. And that's where I go back to my previous comment about don't stop going to training. Don't stop the NCO PME that's necessary to at least learn those skill sets and to gain some potential education in leadership and managerial experience over.
So when an applicant or individual, kind of identifies this is the path I want to go, or I want to learn more about, what a warrant officer does, or, duties, responsibilities, because to some, depending on how much interaction you have, which CID is very different based off of, you guys' organizational structure and everything. But how does one go about speaking to a warrant on, hey, I have this desire, this is something I'm interested in, and when do you start that conversation on this is a career path that I want to look into?
So I look at this from the warrant officer side of things, right? It's our responsibility to look for the next generation of warrant officer. You should always be looking for who your replacement's going to be, or looking for talent that you think needs to move up or progress in their career. So when we have enlisted agents at the office level, I place the responsibility on those young warrant officers to look at the talent, and ask the questions. Sometimes our enlisted agents aren't necessarily looking in that direction. They're so busy, off tempo, and some of the things that they're dealing with on a daily basis, and then family issues, and all the other things that we deal with in our lives. Sometimes they're not asking the question. And if the warrant officer, who is their team leader or team chief, is not counseling them as they should, or not spending time with those enlisted soldiers to get to know who they are and understand what their goals and desires are for their Army career and life in general, sometimes we miss out on opportunities. So like I said, I put a lot of emphasis on the warrant officer involvement there. The enlisted agent, I recommend that they start asking questions and looking at the potential to become a warrant officer basically the first day after they get to their first unit of assignment. Start exploring it. Ask the questions. What do you do? How do you do this? What do I need to do to get to where you are? So I wouldn't wait. I would recommend they start asking questions right away.
Okay, so how does an applicant show that they're competent and technically qualified? Because we can look at NCOERs, or we know based off from working with them, but how do you then translate that to an NCOER? Are there key phrases and words that should be in an NCOER to show that they meet those competencies and technical qualifications?
Yeah, I think this is a tough one, right? I mean, I don't know how other branches are, but, there are some of us that, maybe don't do the best that we could with writing NCOERs. And as far as keywords and phrases, for me, it's about performance. I wouldn't say there's necessarily certain words that I'm looking for in an NCOER. What I'm looking for is the rater and senior rater to agree that the individual that's being rated is competent at what they do, and does so in a professional manner, and that their performance is, of a high quality. That's what I'm looking for. So not necessarily anything specific. And then just for me, on a side note, I like to call the raters and the senior raters on occasion. If I have questions about an NCOER for an applicant that wants to be a warrant officer, I don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call them and say, okay, explain to me what you mean by these statements. Is this person really this good, or are you overinflating their NCOER, or maybe they're not what we're looking for? So again, I don't think there's anything specific. It's just do your job, whatever your job is at the time, and do it to the best of your ability, and I think you'll be okay.
So you touched on performance a little, and doing your job and doing it well. What makes an applicant well-rounded, and is there recommendation for those individuals that have identified that this is the path they want to go, that certain jobs, positions, or experience makes them a little more well-rounded and shows that they can operate in multiple domains or areas, which will make them a well-rounded individual and then a qualified candidate?
Yeah, I think for us, some of it is about location, assignment location, right? Because if you're assigned to a small installation, you're probably not going to get exposure to certain levels of investigation, certain types of crime, where you would at larger installations, say at Fort Bragg or Fort Hood. I mean, there's going to be the opportunity to basically see it all at those types of larger installations, where you may not get that experience at a smaller installation. So I think that not only that, the more that you are exposed to, definitely that will help you become better rounded and prepared to be a warrant officer, because you're going to have to provide, advice and guidance to conduct those types of investigations. But I think they also should be looking at not trying to pigeonhole themselves into a particular type of investigative process. We deal with economic crimes, fraud crimes involving BAH or what have you, different pay and allowance frauds, which can seem kind of boring for some people. They don't necessarily want to deal with it. But if you're willing to take on those types of investigations and gain that experience, it's definitely going to better prepare you for opportunities that might come in the future, especially if you're interested in being a warrant officer.
So you discussed earlier, a prereq of 120 college credit hours or a bachelor's, and that it is waiverable. But should the degree align with like CID, criminal justice, or is any degree acceptable?
So any degree is acceptable, honestly. I think those that come with non-law enforcement or criminal justice degrees often bring a different perspective to the organization, and sometimes a better perspective to the organization, and they bring a different capability as well. We've had some that have come to us with management type background or something from the medical field or whatever. And those types of degree programs definitely are beneficial to the organization. I don't necessarily need everybody to have a degree in some type of law enforcement or criminal justice. That's definitely not what we're looking for, and that's not what we mandate. We're a degree in something that would be beneficial to the organization is really what we're looking for.
Okay. What have you seen as some of the biggest adjustments for individuals as they switch from enlisted to warrant? And then with that, is there any suggestions on how to make that transition smoother? Anything that they can do after selection prior to going to like WOCS and WOBC to help with that transition?
Yeah, so I think this again goes back to my comment earlier about leadership. And that's one of the biggest challenges I think that our enlisted soldiers, our enlisted agents have when they transition to warrant officer, if they have little to no leadership experience. If you're a member of a team and now you're the team leader, that's completely different. Now you're responsible for other soldiers. You have responsibility to counsel. You have responsibility to take care of them, look out for their needs, their families. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that come along with being a leader and responsible for a team that some of them just are not prepared for. So, again, that's where I suggest anything that they can do to improve or to garner some leadership experience is really good. Look for opportunities within the unit that you're assigned to maybe be an assistant to the team leader, if you will, to help run the team. We have opportunities with our drug suppression teams where we have younger soldiers there. We might be able to get one of our enlisted agents over to help and maybe even be a team leader with a couple of those younger soldiers that are working there. So really, I think the main issue is with leadership. The technical piece, I think most of our enlisted agents, 31 Deltas that are making the transition, are probably pretty good on the technical piece. It's just learning and developing that skill set and from experience on how to be a good leader.
So with that, it kind of feeds into the next, question on assignments. As a newly appointed CID agent, where can they expect to go, and kind of what should their career map look like as they progress in their career?
So our new warrant officers primarily are going to locations where they will be a team leader, or a team chief, as we call them. And like I said, depending on location, there may be 1 or 2 enlisted agents on their team. There may be 10 or 15. And we tried to make sure through our talent management process that if we're sending a newly appointed warrant officer to a location where he or she is going to lead, 10 agents or more, that we're sending someone there that has a little more experience and maybe had attained a little bit higher grade as an NCO, and maybe had some leadership experience as an NCO agent before they made the transition. So that's where the majority of our new warrant officers are going, to those types of first line supervisory positions. Career map, their career progression. Well, it really, I like to tell our new warrants to set goals. I can't tell you exactly what to do without knowing what your goal is. So I recommend that they set first a short-term goal, which is the 5 years, and then a long-term goal, which would be, up to probably 10 years. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Things change, obviously, and it could change, but at least you have some goal, desire to be in a certain position. You want to be a detachment commander. Our W4s are serving as detachment commanders. Do you want to be at a certain location? Is there a particular specialty that you want to work, like digital forensics, or do you want to be a forensic science officer? We have opportunities for our warrant officers to work in the protection field, where they're providing close protection to the Department of Defense and Department of the Army's the most senior leadership at the Department of Defense and Department of the Army. So I kind of got to know what they want. And this is where I think that our warrant officers need to counsel and talk to each other and kind of look at the future a little bit, and not just in the moment. Where do you want to be in a couple years from now? I can better help you kind of map out your career and give you some advice if I know what you want to do.
Okay, so career development opportunities, right? You hit on them a little on schools and everything, but as warrants, what do they have for opportunities outside of PME to continue to become system matter experts in that field? And then what are broadening training with industry opportunities for them to kind of set themselves apart from peers, right? So we have that list of broadening opportunities for the schoolhouse to give back and go back there and train your new W1s, or go to walks and be a TAC, and then the schoolhouse down there at the Warrant Officer Career College. What kind of does that look like for those individuals to align with their career?
So we don't necessarily have any training with industry opportunities for our warrant officers. You touched on the school. That's a big one for us. We look for the best of the best, right? We want the best warrant officers that are available to go to the military police school and train there. We train all of our enlisted agents, the brand new CID agents, come through there. We train other military police soldiers there. Of course, our warrant officer PME is there as well. And those are things that we look for the best to send to. And we consider those broadening opportunities for our PME courses. You know, they actually get credit for being a small group leader according to, TRADOC standards. So that's definitely something for our junior and mid-level warrant officers. There's really not a lot of other opportunities other than those. If you want to talk about broadening or career enhancing, it's more so when you get to the W4 and W5 levels where those opportunities kind of, become more available to you. We have internal to CID, we have an inspector general, and we have warrant officers that serve as detailed IGs that are responsible for providing not just oversight to investigations, but they do all the standard IG functions as well, assistance and investigations and things there in the IG world. So that's a broadening opportunity, although it is still within CID. We have some other things that we're working on right now. We don't necessarily have a whole lot of broadening opportunities, but we do have specialty opportunities within CID for our warrant officers. And I mentioned a few of them just a minute ago with our forensic science officer program. Basically, those warrants that are accepted into our forensic science officer program get to go to George Mason University for a year, and they graduate with a master's degree in forensic science, and then they serve at the battalion level and above with the responsibility of providing an advanced technical review and assistance to some of our more serious investigations. We have those that we send off to extensive training when it comes to computers and digital media, and they become experts in digital forensics. And then, of course, I mentioned protection. And then we have opportunities for our warrant officers to be polygraph examiners as well. They go to specialized training, graduate with degrees, and can serve a large portion of their career as a warrant officer conducting polygraph examinations. So we do have several, again, not broadening, but more specialty type opportunities within.
Chief Fitz, do you have any last parting comments that you would like to state at this time?
Yeah, so just to wrap things up, I'll just say, if any of our enlisted agents that might be listening, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your chain of command. If you're not getting the response that you believe that you deserve, don't hesitate to call me. Send me an email. Talk to the folks within the Special Agent Management Division at the headquarters, or use your recruiting team. We have had great success with our relationship with recruiting teams, and they're very knowledgeable of the process. So please reach out, ask questions. If you're not sure what you need to do, we'll help you get there. Just give us an idea that you're interested in becoming a warrant officer, and we'll definitely do what we can to support you and to get you to that next step in your career.
Thank you, sir, for joining us today and the insight into 311 Alpha and the CID agent. Hopefully, this has been beneficial to those that are listening as you start looking at a career change and joining the cohort. Like Chief Fitz said, this is something that I've not regretted, and I don't think you will find a warrant out there that regrets making this career choice. The only thing they might say is they wish they had done it sooner, but it is a ride and it is very informative. and beneficial and rewarding. So for those of you that are interested, please feel free to reach out to your local warrant officer recruiting team. If you can't get a hold of them, talk to any one of us and we'd be more than willing to help and assist you in this process. Thank you.